Hey there, welcome back to Bourbon Battles. My name's Joe. Hey, if you watch us, this is something new for you today. Hopefully you like this. Let me know in the comments if I should continue to do this, if you hate it. Either way, we're going to do several of these because I'm going to film them all today. So today I want to talk to you about the old fashioned. So I started going to these cocktail bars, right? My wife loves cocktails. If you're wondering what I'm sipping on as we get into this, Kentucky Par 12-year-old whiskey. I happened to find that here recently. What a cool find that was. So I go to these cocktail bars with my wife all the time, and I started to notice something as I sit there and I drink a neat whiskey, right? Like this Kentucky Par. So good. So what I noticed is in real whiskey bars, it wasn't a lot of this kind of stuff going out. There is some of that. Overwhelmingly, what I started to notice was the number of old fashions that are going out the door. It was crazy to me. So today I want to get into the old fashioned. So stick with us. Hey, thanks for sticking with us here. So what I want to do is I want to go through a little bit of the history of an old fashioned, where it comes from, and then I'm going to start to share with you in this new series my favorite old fashioned recipes. Some of these I've come up with on my own. Some of them I've had help from other bars. Some of them I've taken a little of this and a little of that and a little of this and kind of combined them all to come up with something really unique. So a little background. I've been considering doing this type of episode for a while now, and Kenny over at 1816 Indiana Rye asked me to come curate a couple cocktails for his menu and his website. So 1816 Indiana Rye, you can see their website right there. Go to the recipes, and you'll find a couple of my old fashions there, one of which we're going to feature today. Is this my favorite old fashioned? Some days I say yes, some days I say I like a few things better. So this is what we're going to start with. So a little bit of the history of the old fashioned. The old fashioned is nothing more than a cocktail that's made by muddling sugar with bitters. Throw a cube of sugar in there, a couple dashes of bitters, muddle them together, add whiskey. That's an old fashioned. Sugar, bitters, and whiskey. So now, as you know, if you've been around this game for very long, the old fashioned has gone in a million different directions. You can be a traditionalist all you want, but it's okay to add other things to old fashions. And this isn't a new concept. We're going to get into that. So it's usually garnished with an orange slice or a zest and a cocktail cherry, right? We all love those cocktail cherries, and the cherry you choose is apparent to how good this is. So usually served over ice in a cocktail glass, a rocks glass, an old-fashioned glass. This is the one I grabbed today. Kind of a fancy little thing. Just got to be big enough to fit your ice cube, basically, if you use a large cube. It was developed in the 19th century and given its name in the 1880s. So in the 1860s, it was common for orange curacao, absinthe, and other liqueurs to be added to the old fashioned. And that's what we're really going to get into with this series on recipes, right? It's not always going to be sugar, bitters, and whiskey, right? I'm going to get into some of these liqueurs. And for all you traditionalists out there that say you can't put amaretto in an old fashioned, you're wrong. They started doing it in the 1860s. Before the Civil War, they started doing this in the cocktail. So this is not a new concept. It really changes everything, and the proportions are just so critical to get right. And this is something you can play with at home, right? And you can add and subtract the little things. If you don't like this bitter, use that bitter, and feel free to do that with any of my recipes, right? I want you to play with it. I want you to send me a message on what you did to make that better. So this has been around for a long time. So cocktails, as they evolved in the 1850s, people started saying, I want it the old-fashioned way, right? The way they used to make it with just sugar, bitters, and whiskey. So that's where the name old-fashioned comes into play. Give it to me the old-fashioned way. The most popular in vogue old-fashioned at the times were made with whiskey, of course. And then in other parts of the country, you can go down this rabbit hole. Brandy got really, really popular. Now, in 1882, the Chicago Tribune reports that rye is more popular than bourbon in an old fashioned. And I talk to people about that all the time, and they say, well, rye's okay in an old fashioned, but whiskey's bourbon's what you're supposed to use. No, stop. It's whatever you like. So today we're going to use a rye. So the Pendennis Club in Louisville It was a gentleman's club founded in 1881. They claim they come up with the name Old Fashioned. It was reported that the bartender invented it for James Pepper, who was a prominent distiller, who took it to the Waldorf Astoria Hotel in New York, and that's where it really gained its fame. We know that the origin of this story is unlikely. It's not true. You know, it was reported in 1880. There's record of old fashions being served prior to this club even being founded. So, if you've heard all that, it's like a lot of bourbon history, right? It's just simply not true. So we also know that the brandy became very, very popular in the late 1800s, particularly in places like Wisconsin, right? Milwaukee, up Minnesota, all that region. To this day, if you go there, they're going to make an old fashioned completely different than anything you're going to have in the rest of the country. I'm in Indiana, and every once in a while, I'll go somewhere, and they'll make an old fashioned where they're muddling everything together like they would make a brandy old fashioned up in Wisconsin. It's kind of funny. So in 2015, the city of Louisville named the Old Fashioned its official drink. Each year during the first 2 weeks of June, Louisville has a big bourbon festival, and they have an old fashioned theme, an old fashioned fortnight, which encompasses all the bourbon events. It's a really cool time. If you ever get a chance to do that, I say do it. I've not done it, and I'm going to make a plan to do it. And here's what else we know about the Old Fashioned. In January of 2020, the Old Fashioned was the top selling cocktail internationally for the 6th straight year. So when I say I go to whiskey bars and that's what I see, it's a lot. I mean, it's 50 to 1 to a neat drink. So that tells me that a lot of you love an old fashioned. So that's why we're going to start this series. So today we're going to get into what I call the Bourbon Battles Spicy Old Fashioned. This is going to be a spicy rye old fashioned made with 1816 Indiana rye. So let's see what all the ingredients we need. Okay, here's what you need. Now, please understand that I'm going to use these bar tweezers. If you don't have bar tweezers, use your fingers, use a knife, use a fork. It doesn't matter, right? If you don't have a bar mixing glass, use a red Solo cup. It doesn't matter. Don't get hung up on the things that I'm using, but I want to show you how I do this, right? So I'm going to post the recipe down in the comments so you can go find all of this. So here's how we're going to do this. We're going to use ANCHO REYES chili liqueur. It's a chili ANCHO liqueur. This is I'll call it red. It's got like a really dark red, almost maroon writing on it. If you can't find this in your area, that's normal, right? The green bottle will work just a-okay, guys. No problem with that at all. They have those two different ones. For this particular one, I'm going to use the 1816 Indiana rye. Guys, Kenny, my friend, hooks me up with this stuff. Love this. Guys, go to 1816 up there in Rensselaer, Indiana, and tell them Bourbon Battles sent you, and tell them you want to try the Bourbon Battles Spicy Old Fashioned, like you see right here, made with 1816 Indiana rye. Now, don't get hung up on the liquor, guys. If you like Woodford Reserve, if you like Elijah Craig, if you like Bullet Rye, use any of those in this recipe. Play with this recipe as much as you want. This stuff all you want. Play with the different bitters. We're going to use orange and regular bitters in this one. Now, I'll highly encourage you to make sure you use saline, guys. This is going to call for saline. If you've never had saline in a cocktail, I encourage you to try it at least, right? It's so easy you can make it at home, right? You just get one of these little droppers. You don't have to have that. You can use anything in the world, right? You can use an old water bottle and a straw to get the drops out of it. But I use this in nearly all my cocktails, and once you try it, you'll understand why, right? So if you've never used saline before, I encourage you to make your cocktail, drink about half of it, and then put half the amount of bitters back in it and see if you like it better with the bitters, right? Try it both ways, right? If you don't want to waste a couple ounces of whiskey to try to figure out if you like something. Now, the cherries are imperative, right? You have to have a good cocktail cherry. We get these at Costco, I believe. They're super cheap. You know, you've seen the LUXARDO cherries that are crazy expensive. These are a fraction of the price. A regular old maraschino cherry will work fine, right? It will do the trick, but it's not quite as good. So let's get into building this cocktail. I really want to know what you think about it, if you tried it, and if you do it again, and all that good stuff. So, okay, we're ready to start building our drink. This particular one we're going to build inside the glass, which is, I very, very rarely do that. So this is how we're going to do this one. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get 2 ounces of our 1816 Indiana rye, or your whiskey of choice. So if you've never tried this stuff and you're in Indiana, check them out. You can get it at most Myers. If you're outside of Indiana, don't hesitate to go to their website. You see it on the screen there. And See about ordering you some. Oop, I spilled a little. That's okay. So 1816 Indiana Rye, 2 ounces. And then we're going to do a ½ ounce of simple syrup. Syrup, obviously there's a million different recipes online. You can make it yourself. This is just pure cane simple syrup from Bar Smith. You can get this at most liquor stores, Total Wine, all that stuff. So ½ ounce of this stuff. You can use Demerara syrup, whatever you want, right? Don't make this overly complicated. ½ ounce of that bad boy right there. Now for the fun stuff, a ½ ounce of ANCHO REYES chili liqueur. Guys, this is going to make this thing spicy. It's going to make it unlike anything you've ever had before. Boom. I was just in Florida all week, and this stuff was everywhere down there. Total Wine in Indiana's got the green one, no problem. So 2 dashes of regular bitters and 2 dashes of orange bitters. I like the combination, so boom. This one's a little weird because it's an eyedropper. Orange bitters, Angostura brand. Boom. All right. Now, we're going to stir this up. Just want to get it all mixed in good. Ooh, we almost forgot the most important part. Our saline solution. 4 drops of saline. 4 drops of saline really, really makes a big difference in this bad boy. Stir this thing up real good. All right. Now, we're going to use a big cube. I get these molds on Amazon. I'm not really good at making them clear like a lot of people like, but that's okay. So you got to be really, really careful with this. I'm going to lower it into this with my bar spoon. Use a tablespoon. Use anything you want. That way you don't splash, right? Let that sit there, start to cool down a little bit. Why I do that, I'm going to get a lemon peel, right? I like to use just a regular potato peeler. And I like a pretty big lemon peel in this. You might say, well, you're supposed to use oranges. When I use rye whiskey, I like to use lemon peels, not orange peels. So take that bad boy and express it right down on there. Hit the rim of your glass, drop it right in. Now, take your cocktail cherries. We're going to drop 1 cocktail cherry in. We're going to make sure it's not dripping wet. We don't want it overly saturated with the cherry juice because we don't want any. We got enough sweet in there. Woo! Boom! Drop it right in there. It's going to make a huge difference in this drink. It's delicious. Now, there's only one thing left to do. Cheers. It is so good. That sweet from the simple syrup and even a little bit of the cherry comes shining through on there. The 1816 Indiana Rye, this is 100 proof, 101.6 proof. Got a good proof point for that. This is delicious. Do you have to be a big fan of spicy to enjoy this? No. It's got a little bit of a spicy kick on the backside to it. You definitely notice it. Don't get me wrong. It's definitely there. If you hate spicy stuff, you're not going to like this. But if you like spicy, that sweet and spicy, that saline really makes that thing pop. This is the Bourbon Battles Spicy Old Fashioned. Hey, I want to remind you, drinking bourbon is supposed to be fun. Do it with your friends. Do it responsibly. Share cocktails with each other. Let me know in the comments what you think about this old fashioned. And let me know in the comments what your favorite old fashioned may be featured on next week's episode. So, hey, I want to remind you, like my dad always said, it's better to be full of whiskey than full of shit. Cheers.
If you drink, don't drive to the watermelon crawl.